And with that, we are back with another edition of Sunday Night AstroLive. I am your Sunday Night Live astronaut, and here we have the Sunday Night AstroLive AstroKII, Miss Peachy. Yeah, that's right. You're ready to roll, aren't you? Yes, you are. Yeah. Yep. There we go. Okay. What's happening, everybody? I need to be more consistent with my mic placement and my level of speech. I've noticed that there are times where I sort of tail off a little bit because I sort of mumble myself. I don't know where the mumble came from. It overtook me one day. And the next thing I knew, I was mumbling. I had a case of the mumbles. And I'm going to do my best to self-heal from the mumbles. It's an important thing. Because as we move further towards the sunset versus the sunrise, I think the mumble can become even more problematic. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You understand what I'm saying about that? So today I declare war on mumbles. No mumbles. Right, Peaches? She says, yeah. She says, yeah. All right. Let's see. Who do we have here in the old peanut gallery? Why did they call it a peanut gallery? Now, I've been to one of those bars where you just put the peanut shells on the floor. I had to try to convince myself that it was cool and quaint. It wasn't. It was like the zoo. Sometimes I am a Virgo, and peanut shells on the floor did not cut it for me. And I listen, if that's your thing, you like those bars of peanut shells on the floor, God bless you. God bless you. All right, who do we have? My man, DJ MC. What's going on, Brother Mike? Meow Meow is here. Sun Tzu, this will be interesting. Well, I hope so. Because if it's not interesting, well, then I'm not really doing my job. Although I suppose I could be doing my job and it could not be interesting. The two are not mutually exclusive. I could give you the best fucking information in the world and I can just be very monotone about it, very, very matter of fact. And you might just be fall asleep. Or I could be over the top and say nothing. And you might really like that too. I don't know. We're not. But we'll see. We'll see. It's always best to, what's the word? Overpromise, underpromise, and overachieve. Underpromise and overachieve. And I hope I hit the overachieve mark tonight. And I haven't promised you anything except my time and the best of my ability to bring you something meaningful. Okay, what's going on, Bo? Good to see you. There she is, DJ Pebblestone, who will be DJing at our event. Yes, our event is on, and the link to sign up for said event first week in October. It's going to be great. We're going to have Mario from Symbolic Studies. He'll be there. Who else is going to? Well, I'm going to be there. DJ Pebblestone would be there. Who knows? We might have a Miss Emily Moyer sighting. Plus, the attendees will be there. And it's 3 days of fun under the Texan sun. And I have a nice little video. Should upload it. It's from my phone. I went out to the hotel on Friday. I took a little video of the pool. Very nice. It's a very nice video. Anyway, the link is in the link is in the description for the show. And if you're going to go, and I do hope you attend, and Rich, if you're listening, I did send an email back to you. If you didn't get it, I will send it again and I will take care of you. So I'm just on the record with that. You need to get a hotel room, and you can do that at Inn of the Hills. And I think they've even lowered the rates for us. So how about that? Veronica's Barn, hello to you. Computer still won't live chat, so be economical with my words. Ah, the joy of one finger typing on a device. Just think you could have one of those sticks from your head. You could be doing that. Or you could just get a link, one of those Neuralink things, right? And you wouldn't need anything. Neo the Wise is here. What's happening, Neo the Wise? Knight of Cups. Down the wombat hole. What's going on? Down under. Down under. Beth Berry's here. Hi, Double B, Interstellar Cosmic Conversations. Patricia, who is my my astrological doppelganger, and but yet I think is also a 2/4 projector. I'm not sure if it's splenic or mental, but she's in the zone. Hello, ISCCP. Fire God. Yes, that's the whimsical one. Check it in from Wisconsin. She's in Wisconsin now. Shirley Loshiaba. What's going on, Shirley? Great to see you. Maria P. Fair. Hello, Maria. Yes, you did make it. Jackie Delario. Hi, Jackie. Susie G's in the house, the Queen of Cups. Ms. Behaving too. Hello, Ms. Behaving too. Maya Rose with us. I was able to glimpse some of Maya Rose's father's artwork. Very interesting postmodern artwork. The world is back to normal. Michael's first on chat. Yes. We don't have order without Michael Benton lead off. Brandy Herrera. It's beautiful in Sin City. 92 was the high today. Wow. That is a balmy 92 in Sin City. Glemma Spank checking in from sunny South Carolina. Let's see who else. Sweet Woodruff, VFW. What's happening, Sweet? Orlando. Coffee all day long. You remember the coffee commercials there were 2 coffee commercials that I remember that were just about coffee, not a brand. One wasn't it this is Juan Valdez. He and his family have been growing the coffee bean in this region of Colombia for 2 centuries. And it has to be the right rainfall and the right temperature to be able to create the juicy red bean that will wind up in your morning coffee. Remember that one? Who doesn't remember Juan Valdez? And that guy got up every day to make sure you had the best fucking cup of coffee you could get. And the other was the Coffee Achievers. Remember the Coffee Achievers? Oh yeah. You know who was a coffee achiever? David Bowie was a coffee achiever. You know he drank some coffee. Let's see who else we have here. Smoking Mifiata. There you go. There you go. There's my man Ryan. Yes, please sign up. Let's have a party. Let's party like it's 1999. We'll be having an eclipse coming in just before that, but not on the day of. That was last year. Claire, hi Claire. Claire's here. Teddy Lamar in the house. Jack, what's happening? Strome 3. Meow meow. I have Bailey's cheesecake. I'm so jealous. That sounds pretty good. Soul Travelers here. Shelly Myers here. Jennifer Mola. Hi, Jennifer. Catherine Rosen. It's pouring rain in Florida. Nice. Harry Bowie. Hey. Scott Jerzik. What's going on, Scott? Good to see you. Lynette Jardine. Lynette Jardine. Mad Maxine. Got to keep our road warriors straight. Peter Bayonne. What's going on, Peter? From Vero Beach, Florida. Checking in. Scott Ann. Mumbly Bob. I know I have a case of the mumbles. It's worse for me in the morning. I have to check myself in the morning. Road Trip 1981. What's going on, Darlene? Good to see you. If you feel so, speaking of coffee, there you go. If you want to buy me a cup, it's there. Thank you very much for everybody who's bought me one so far. I appreciate it. Vince, hey Vince, what's going on? Our friend from the Golden Gate. Hi Vince, good to see you. Who else do we have? No Mumbles. Yes. TDF, you made it. Here we go. Congratulations. Glad you're with us. WC Ray, Mumbles is my nickname. I seem to recall that, actually. SL Sully's here. Choose between two choices, choose the third one, timeline. This whole thing is fucking with people's heads. I'm going to talk about it. This whole thing is fucking with people's heads. And so, you know, I try my best to be as, you know what I mean, down the center as I possibly can be. We all have bias. We all have bias. Okay. We all have bias. And I do my best to stay true as I can to the astrology. I've even said, look, hey, there's a reason why Tim Waltz can generate enthusiasm. He's an Aries. It's what he does. You know, I sometimes I'm fair to a chart, right? Like even Claudia Scheinbaum, who died in the wool, Marxist, works for the World Economic Forum. And I looked at her chart. I looked at Mexico's chart. And if she ever stepped off the reservation and wanted to be a real leader, she'd be a great one for that country. Right? That was an agnostic read of a chart. But that's an if. Big if. So I do my best to, as they say, call it as I see it. And tonight, we're going to navigate through the wormhole. And hopefully, I'll bring you at least a picture of something that other people may not be considering, which may be beyond politics. So I ask you for perhaps 2 hours to suspend your beliefs for a period of time, for these 2 hours, and let's try to get above this thing and look at it from the perspective of the timeline, which I have talked about ad nauseum when I first stumbled upon this idea that we go through this fork when JFK is assassinated, and why it is important that there's this connection between RFK Jr. and Trump. So I'm going to do my best to try to put that all together for all you folks to see and understand. I do want to address this, which is Love of Scorpio. I've had on my eye on Ireland for a few weeks. It's awful. It's getting really bad. It's really, really bad. I follow this fellow Michael O'Keefe on Twitter, and he posts a lot of drone footage of these bases that they're building, like really rapidly, all over Ireland. And I think it might have been him or somebody on his thread, and they posted all these UN vehicles in Ireland, and they had like 50 cal guns on them. Look, there are people who do watch this show in Ireland, and I just I don't even know where to go with this. I just don't know. I mean, we might be witnessing, and I hope it doesn't happen. I hope it doesn't happen. But we might be witnessing the wholesale slaughter of people. If for whatever reason, the Irish, who are now starting to wake up, albeit a bit too late, like just about everybody, including us in the United States, I just don't think it's good. It's not good. And I also think it's interesting that it's all happening prior to the election. what does the United States election have to do with any of it? Well, first of all, no matter what his relatives think about him, RFK Jr. is Irish. He's an Irish Catholic, so he has roots with that country. And I don't think he would look kindly upon what looks to me like a totalitarian SWAT of the entire country. That's what it's looking like. And if Trump and Kennedy were in office, let's just say they were. Let's say we'll live in that world. Do you think that they would do something? Do you think that they would cut off something from the Irish, or right, like in a situation like that? This is a really interesting question of which I don't have an answer to. If you have an occupying force in a country comprised of Georgians, maybe Chechens, maybe some Albanians, you have some sub-Saharan Africans, and you have a bunch of UN people, and that country becomes occupied. If you're in the United States, what do? Well, I know what this current administration would do. They do nothing. They wouldn't do anything. But would a Trump administration do something different? I don't know the answer to that. I'd like to think they would, but I don't know. I don't know, especially if there's so much going on simultaneously that's just, one brush fire on the global prairie, and there's many, many more. So I think it's horrific, and there are a lot of, there are some really sharp young guys that live in Ireland, and they do live streams, and commentary, like Uber Boyo and Keith Woods and a number of others. And it's like, this is a dire situation. It's like, that's just how I see it. I mean, I'm just watching everything happen, and it's not good. Not good. Cynthia Cluth, meow to all. Always hated throwing the peanut shells on the bar floor. They sold the peanuts in those seats. Let's see what else we have here. Brainer at Northwoods Inn did the shells on the floor. Weird thing to do, in my opinion. Yeah, I was not a peanut on the floor guy. I tried to convince myself that I liked it. Oh, this is cool. Lewis Walden's here. What's up, Lewis? I hope you're selling a few houses down there. Yes, you can get a reading from me. I still do that. I enjoy it. Let's see. Rand's checking in from Canada, Charlottetown, PEI. Beautiful. Welcome. SL Sully, Mercury Retro, black guy had replaced tires. Now power steering went out. So I've been going through my own Mercury retrograde struggles. Now the septic tank looks like it's replaced. And I do have a homeowner's policy, but I know that they're not going to replace it for the amount that it's replaced. It's like a warranty. Anyway, yeah, it's been fun, hasn't it? This Mercury retrograde. Platinum Happiness 2024. I hope you're hip. Hope your hip is happening. There he is, Mark. Yes, he'll be with us next Friday, and he'll be premiering his brand new book on the mind and more. Looking forward to it. The brilliant Marquez. Kabuki Theater. Shells on the floor are the sign of a good state. I didn't know that. I'll keep that in mind. Laura E is here. Hi, Laura. I remember the Peanut Gallery. I was in it once. It was a child audience when I was very young. Maybe Bozo the Clown. There you go. That was a reference to the Peanut Gallery. Let's see. Yes. Come sign up for the event. Let's have some fun before the whole shit house goes up in flames. Green-Eyed Crow is here. Misty's here. Hi, Misty. Ojos azules. Things are getting very eerie and strange out there. Indeed, they are. Under promise and over deliver is the most important rule in sales. Yes, indeed. I'd agree with you. Do not promise anything tonight. Do not promise a great show, but I will over deliver. Let's see. Oh, at least I'm entertaining. At least I'm entertaining. There's my man, Steve Thor at the door. What's going on, brother Steve? Good to see you. Olivia Provost is here. Hi, Olivia. Deborah R. from the Panhandle. I like the Panhandle. I like that part. Julie Sunshine, big cat lady. The X, the Vertex. The Vertex is the second descendant. And it is between house 9 and house 5. Although I have seen the rare Vertex in house 4, it is not common. And it is another part of who you are where the other has a role to play. So if your Vertex is in the 8th house, like mine is, then you would find out more about who you are through the other by going into the 8th house. And there may be people that might show up on the Vertex or the degree of the Vertex who could be important in illuminating that part of who you are. I hope that that makes some sense there, Mr. Bio. Let's see. Terry. Hi, Terry. Lena Winkler. Hi, Lena. Double K, the California Contrarian. Funny, Robert's very recent video on psychic ability days. Be handy for touch typing. Yeah, I saw that he did that. Robert's up here. He's a Virgo. He's an interesting character. Integrity and Karma is here. Jill Wong from Mexico. Also, hey, we got Jake in the house. Gucci to go. It's G to G. I wish I had unfortunately done it. Okay. Hey, one of these days. One of these days. Doug Rowe, the Peanut Gallery is the cheapest seats. Thanks, Doug. That's the Peanut Gallery, cheap seats. The Peanut Gallery. All you guys have a front row seat. You guys all have luxury boxes right here. There's no cheap seats in this house. Ursula Hauser. Now I wonder if Ursula's coming because her friend Mario is going to be at the event. Oh, it's made the best green goddess salad dressing. You know, it's funny. We were looking. That was something we were into, like about 2 months ago. So Joan and I were talking. So what's the story with Green Goddess? Like, how did they come up with Green Goddess? What's the roots of Green Goddess? You know, it's one of those things you get in your brain. And it's like, where did this come from? So we did a deep dive on Green Goddess, and yes, when you make it yourself, it can be totally delicious and healthy for you. Let's see what else we have here. Rock and Reality. I like that. Yes, this is where we're going to be, the Inn of the Hills. Make your reservation. Tom helps out with room shares if you need one. Up here in Canada, Charlestown, the moon rising in the east, House of Taurus entering there. Nice image. Very nice image. The Dunkin' Donuts guy got it pretty early too. Yes, they did. Lynn grew coffee for 7 years. Yeah. The Panamanian coffee is some good bean, I have to say. Julie Costner. Hi, Julie. I said Juan Valdez. A great commercial when you know what the commercial was about. Juan Valdez and his trusty donkey. I know that donkey. He wouldn't have been. The donkey never gets enough credit. The donkey never gets enough credit. El Brujo. Let's see. Lisa Dawn T. Seguin. Hey, we got a fantastic sighting as well as Lisa. Hey, Cece. Good to see you. Yes, please hit the like. Let's get some likes up in this place. And I can't believe I'm still at the same subscriber level. That's all right. I've let it go. Charlie giving us a grand old Biloxi hello and hug. There we go. Durov got arrested in France. Right. Well, that's wild. That is fucking wild. Wow. Wow. That's major, right? This guy who's got a telegram, and he lands down in Paris and he gets arrested. It just feels like they're getting very close to completely making a global crackdown on free speech. Doesn't it feel that way? It feels like the cat's out of the bag. Whether you're red pilled or black pilled, it doesn't matter. They don't care. This is it, right? The cone of silence on everybody. It feels like that's where it's going. Sharon Luce is also in Vero Beach. That's right. They punished RFK Jr. by withdrawing his Secret Service. I think RFK's got some. We're going to look at this chart tonight. I miss Steve Borg Resistance. I know YouTube messed with him. Yeah, whatever happened to Steve Borg Resistance? I liked him. Angie 808. What's going on, Angie? Divine Guidance by Lisa Marie. This is an understatement. Tim Waltz is gross. I would agree wholeheartedly. He is gross. And that move with this kid. First of all right, let me ask the question. Why didn't they all come out holding hands together? You know what I mean? Like a real family would go, let's hold hands together. And then they walk out together, and then they get up there together, and then they all hold hands together and smile and laugh, and Tim Waltz can be Rip Taylor. Instead, they kind of trudge up there together, not holding hands for him and the kid. And then the kid looks like he's fine on the teleprompter. People were saying, well, he saved him from the teleprompter. He was going to hit the teleprompter. No, he wasn't going to hit the teleprompter. And you know what? So the fuck what? So what if the kid hit the teleprompter? Right? It's not like the teleprompter is, finely edged with a razor blade bevel, and it's going to slice his forehead open. It's just a fucking teleprompter. And he wasn't going to hit it. But it wasn't just the come on. He could have gently pulled him, right? Or he could have stopped and just put his arm around him and did this, like most even-keeled people would do. But no, he almost pulls his arm socket out, and then he's got the Waltz scowl that I can't even do it. It's like I can't even do it. I don't scowl. It's an unnatural thing for me. I bet most of you can't even do it. You're not scowlers. He's a scowler. He just drops right into it. He's got the sad clown frown. And he goes into that. And then his wife was like, oh, whatever. Okay. It's like, fuck. Oh. All right. What do we got? Oh, there she is, the lovely and talented one. Saving Austin one tooth at a time. What? What do you want? I fed you. I fed you. I fed you. I fed you already. I fed you before the show. And I've already introduced you to the audience. What do you need? She needs another curtain call. There she is. She needs another curtain call. She's feeling like she's being neglected. I know you're feeling neglected. There you go. All right, Maria DeHange is here. What's going on, Maria? She said to me over on Twitter, Ireland is a canary in the coal mine, always has been. Does July 13th? Yes, it does. There was another shift when RFK spoke. Yes. We're going to get into it. We're going to get into it. Let's see who else we have here. Who else? Anybody new? Andrea Garland. Hey, it's Andrew Garland sighting. Andrew's been around before. Hey, Jelena. Jelena's here. Jelena, the June part. The June part caught me by surprise, but Jelena's here. Hi, Jelena. More of a vibe would feel in Europe before, maybe a vibe. More of a vibe maybe would feel in Europe before all this. Maybe. Thomas Sheridan said they were building containment camps. Yeah, not good. Not good. Springmeyer says the Kennedys are bloodline. It does not surprise me at all. I'm praying for Ireland. We as a whole have been expendable throughout history. It's a terrible thought, but it's true. The manufactured and engineered potato famine is just one example. And I have Irish blood in my veins. So the most creative and brilliant people in the world are the Irish. The most, I think, are probably some of the most literary people. Right? I mean, you got your Oscar Wilde, right? I'm sure. Right? You got your James Joyce, and there's more. I'm sure. That's just off the top of my head. There's plenty. You have Feargal Sharkey in the Undertones, a great Irish voice. Let's see. Fallon Blue. Is it Fallon Blue? Fallon Blue. Fallon Blue. Muzzy 808, a reverse color revolution. Interesting. Geometric sphere universal intelligence. U.S. is no less dire straits. We're lag time, but I would agree with you. We're a bit of a lag time, but I would agree. Mira Ducina, blessings from the Smoky Mountains. Use the 13 peanuts on the floor are just messy. I want to go to a restaurant for a meal, not a mess. Kind of the same boat. Invasion of Western countries is not good. Powder keg waiting to happen. It's all part of the Albert Pike scenario, isn't it? Feels that way. Carly, what's happened, Carly? Paper Dragon's here. Steve, Zarelith the Immortal. What's going on, Steve? Good to have you. I feel like you should have like a raging guitar chord for you here. Tundar! I told the kids that Logan's Roadhouse had no rules, hence the peanuts on the floor. Okay. Now, if I was a kid, maybe I would get into the peanuts on the floor. I go back to like a 10-year-old mindset. I might. Sandra Wells is here. Long timer. What's up, cuz? Good to see you. Let's see. No one you know. What's happening? Joe Potter in the house. I thought the AMRC was like a second ascendant. I have never seen an intuitive explanation of that, though. The vertex. It is like the second ascendant, but you have to access it with another person. By and large. So interesting about the vertex. You're welcome. Oh, we got a Jolie Evans sighting, and guess what I have to do? I have to play a birthday song for Jolie. It was her birthday at 0 Virgo, and I told her I'd play her happy birthday song which I will. And after this, we're going to jump into the show. Not that we haven't, because you've been the show, but we're going to get into these charts. So here we go. What are we going to play? What are we going to play for our friend? Let's see. Now, I got to make sure that she feels like she's getting the super special birthday treatment, super special birthday song. Okay, I gotta find it. Right, hold on, I'm working on it. Let's see, what is she gonna like? There's a lot of weird birthday songs. I like that one, but it's too long. Let's see. All right. Jolie, guess what you're going to get? I changed my mind. All right. Is this going to work? Let's see. All right, I have not. No, not going to do that. Not going to do that one. All right, I promise. Okay, you're going to get the. You're going to get the piano version. This is the stripped down Virgo piano version. Think of Keith Jarrett playing Happy Birthday. Okay, this is for you. The stripped down, timeless classic Happy Birthday piano version. Let's give our friend Jolie a warm happy birthday huzzah. Well, that was quite nice. That was very nice. It was very Virgo too. I mean, he had a very plain, sort of brown image, and then you had this very interesting, like, illustration. This pen line drawing. Helmut Schenker, Happy Birthday, a timeless classic. And even Peachy got in on it. Yeah, you enjoyed that, didn't you? You enjoyed that. Yes, you did. All right, let's get serious now. So one of the things I've talked about on this channel and going back to my website when I started to wrap my head around this idea of a split in the timeline that occurred with the death of JFK. Now, if you read the description for tonight's show, one of the things that I said was, whether you believe it or not doesn't really matter. Whether you think that it was staged or fake, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that an event happened. You had millions of people pouring their emotion into that event. And then the country was going in this direction. And then all of a sudden it went this direction. And so what do I mean by that? If you go back and look, and by the way, let me just again preface this. I am not making the Kennedys out to be this amazing American family. That said, I do believe they play an important role in the history of this country and the fabric of this country on many levels. So I think as a family, they're an important family. They're a flawed family, but they're an important family. And so what you have is what we have is we have a situation where JFK is running for president. He's going up against Richard Nixon, who had been vice president under Dwight Eisenhower. Eisenhower did not give Nixon. It was like he endorsed him, but it wasn't like he was overly gratuitous in his support and his enthusiasm for Nixon. And it didn't stop the two families from creating a bridge between each other, because Richard Nixon's daughter married Dwight Eisenhower, David Eisenhower. So they have a connection between the two families. So it did the Eisenhower, I wouldn't call it freeze, but it was definitely, arm's length. I support him. I endorse him, arm's length. So Nixon is, and by the way, if you look at the country, those 8 years under Eisenhower were incredibly prosperous. There's all this massive expansion, building. You have the first suburbs. Levittown is being built. The assembly lines are cranking out cars, products, you name it. America is humming, and it's coming off its probably greatest day with its so-called win in World War II, which many of us understand now to be a Pyrrhic victory at best. So Nixon is the presumptive favorite. If you go back and watch Mad Men, they devote a pretty large chunk of the first season to the Nixon-Kennedy election. And all the guys at Sterling Cooper, they want Nixon because business has been really good under Eisenhower. And Don is somewhat ambivalent politically, although I think if push came to shove, he probably would vote for Nixon because at the end of the day, Don Draper is a capitalist. He doesn't do it for free. Betty Draper, on the other hand, does get involved in the campaign, and she does canvass and vote for Kennedy. So what we're seeing through Betty Draper is the evolution of the female vote at that time. And prior to that, if you go back in time, you look at the 50s, and women were voting. Of course, they had the right to vote. But it was a different social consciousness than even at the beginning of the 60s started to take root. So we're starting to get into civil rights, right? All these things are beginning to get cranked up in 1960. So it's the exhibition of a woman from a middle-class suburb of New York and all of her middle-class friends who were out pounding the pavement for Kennedy. And I think Kennedy had that power over women. He was incredibly charismatic. And Nixon, nobody would ever confuse Nixon for being charismatic. Now, to give Nixon a little bit of credit, he could be very funny. He could be witty at times if he wanted to be. He was extremely articulate and could unwind things in a way that if you had to understand a large issue, he could do that. So it wasn't as if Nixon was a complete dolt, but he didn't have the same charisma that JFK had. So it was going to be a very tight race. And of course, JFK's old man got the mafia involved, and he got the Jewish mafia. Now, the mafia and the Jewish mafia are basically one and the same, but they're also slightly different. And in the case of the Jewish mafia, the word on the street was that they would help his son get elected. But at that time, you're looking at Israel, which has only been in existence for 12 years. And they're doing everything they can to get traction and even begin the building of their theoretical nuclear bomb at Dimona, right? And the Israelis, through the quote unquote Jewish mafia, basically said, okay, we'll do this, but he's got to be hands off on Israel. He being Kennedy. He's got to be hands off. He's got to let them do what they're going to do and not have an aggressive relationship towards them. No, okay, fine, sure, no problem. And the same thing was going on with the mob. Now, prior to that election, RFK had been a senator, and he was grilling these mob guys. Like, he was already going after the mob. And the mob basically said, look, we'll do this, because the old man had mob connections from his days when he was, had speakeasies in Boston. So they said, yes, okay, we'll help you, but you've got to get your son to leave us alone. His son being Bobby. Well, guess what happened? JFK and Bobby, once they got in, they said, fuck you. And Bobby continued to go after the mob. And JFK continued to give Israel the cold shoulder. John F. Kennedy did not like David Ben-Gurion, and he did not like being told what to do. So they made enemies. Now, there's kind of a hidden side to all of this. And the hidden side to this has to do with Mary Pinchot Meyer. And I've told this story before. Mary Pinchot Meyer was one of many women who had an affair with JFK. And she was having an affair with him in the year of 1963. Who knows how far it stretched back, possibly 1962. And she is the wife of Cord Meyer, who is the head of the CIA. And there's a rumor and a theory, which I think is quite possibly true, and that Timothy Leary was beginning his LSD experiments for the CIA at that time. And they were playing with that stuff. Like they would dose people around Langley. If you read the book Acid Dreams, they talk about it. And the rumor is that she'd gotten a hold of some LSD through Leary and was dosing JFK. And it so happens that there were other women that she was connected to who were having relationships with various congressmen and senators who were doing the same thing. Let me see if I can show this for you. So a lot of this material came from a magazine that I used to work for, and it was Mondo 2000. And the publisher of the magazine was the Queen Moo, who was one of the smartest people I've ever run across. She was brilliant, and this was the cover for that issue. Let me show it to you, so you can see it here. Let's see. There's Are You Serious? There it is, right there. So this is the Kennedy issue, and this is where she gets into the breakdown of what was going on with JFK around this time. So that's how I get initiated into this idea that something is happening behind the scenes, and that he's actually undergoing a transformation of his consciousness. Hence, things moving in a very different direction. That would include the cessation of the Vietnam War. There is a very interesting story in Behold a Pale Horse by Jonathan May. If you haven't read it, it's online. You can find it. He talks about his relationship with JFK. He talks about his relationship with the Hunt brothers. He talks about his relationship with John Connolly. And there's this plan to basically take back U.S. currency using Texas. And Texas has its own Federal Reserve. It's not connected to the Federal Reserve system in the sort of the Federal Reserve network. So there was all these things that were kind of lining up. The Hunt brothers were trying to corner the silver market. So there are all these things going on in the background with JFK. He's made enemies because he's gone back on promises that he would keep. He's possibly having these mind-expanding trips and beginning to understand that there's way more going on than banging chicks and having the Kennedy legacy. And then there's this side pocket story. And remember, John Connolly was in the car with him in Dallas. And what's fascinating about John Connolly is that he would later play a role that would be just as significant, and it would be with Nixon. And they would take the United States, 1971, they would take the United States off of the gold standard. So Connolly is an interesting character from the point where he's in the car with Kennedy to 71, where this basically becomes a petrocurrency. And I'm not going to get into all the weeds around that. So then what happens? On 11/22/63, this happens, right? The Kennedy event happens. And that's where we start. We start with the assassination. And let's just take a look at the chart for that day. Okay. All right. So when we look at the chart, this is when it happened. 12:30 p.m., 11/22, 1963, Dallas, Texas. What I find interesting about this chart is the placement of Saturn. What does Saturn represent? It represents time. Saturn is Chronos. Saturn is the timekeeper of the wheel. And here on the ascendant, it is about to bring in a new time or a different time. And with the moon conjunct Saturn, which is an unusual conjunction, it is not just about resetting the so-called clock of reality. There's also an emotional component to it. And this is where we get into the language of trauma. So if we go over here, to the other side, right, we will find a yod. And there's a yod and then there's an inconjunct. So the yod is the moon and Jupiter coming in and hitting that yod. Here's the vertex. We were just talking about the vertex. That's interesting. All right, so let's go through this here. Give me 1 second. I'm following my hunches. I had not looked at this before, so this is something that is just coming up in the moment based on our conversation about the vertex. All right, let me just show you here. Okay, so this is the chart of Lyndon Baines Johnson. He's got his moon at 9 Virgo. Okay, let's go back over here. Where's his moon? It's right there. Right, Johnson's moon is right there on Uranus, and it is 2 degrees off of the vertex. What do we got going on here? Well, we have Jupiter, which is in Aries. And what do we know about Aries? Aries is all about police, guns, violence, soldiers, centurions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? Well, Johnson's moon is also conjunct Pluto in this alignment. And there's other things going on here, but this is the other, right? That's where his moon is. Johnson's sun is at 3, and his Mars is at 2, and his Mercury is at 10. So basically, as the moon Mercury conjunction at 9, 10. Okay. So his Mercury is right there on the midpoint. Wow, how about that? Saturn is in the mix as well, and it's got the inconjunct with Pluto over here. So this yod, I mean, if we wanted to nail down Johnson, like his sun is at 3, so his sun is right here, and it's, oh, look at that, there we go. His sun is right there, conjunct Uranus. So that's at 9. So let's see what we got here. That is Regulus. So his sun is right in there. His moon Mercury is right in there. And then also Pluto is part of the mix. And Pluto is also, Saturn's just outside the yod. 1404, 1719. It's just outside of the inconjunct. Now that said, there's plenty going on over here with Venus and Mars in conjunction and squaring Uranus. So this is interesting, right? So Kennedy is assassinated. He's gone. He's out of the picture. And this represents a new time. And it's Saturn in Aquarius, which will dominate literally the next decade. Like the next 7 years, I believe, is very Saturn in Aquarius, because you have this whole kind of Aquarian. See, this whole Aquarian energy gets hijacked. Yeah, it really feels like, okay, we're moving in this direction, and then this thing happens, and it gets hijacked, and we have things like MK Ultra, which is both practiced on an individual level and on a societal and cultural level. And no matter where you tap in, whether it's Laurel Canyon, whether it's Ken Kesey and the electric Kool-Aid acid tests, and San Francisco, and Charles Manson, and and all the things that become the fabric and the loom of the 60s, some of which are quite dark, also feel like it's taking advantage of this energy that's available. And then what happens is that they turn it into kind of a Wizard of Oz trip, but then the Wizard of Oz trip gets really bad. right? It's like you're on a really good drug, and then at a certain point, the good drug trip goes bad, and that's what happens to the '60s. And I feel like that the energy, if you go back to 1962, and you go back to January of 1962, late January of 1962, early February, you have the superstellium in Aquarius, and I feel like that superstellium is opening up the '60s. It's like, here we go. We've got 6 planets. They're all in Aquarius, and this could be an incredibly interesting, forward-thinking, technologically advanced time. I mean, that's what it really looks like. And maybe it is going in that direction until this day. And then it gets hijacked and commandeered. And instead of having whatever Kennedy was going to work on, we have a counterfeit model of that with Johnson and the Great Society and the war on poverty. And let's be clear, Johnson really didn't give a shit about poor people. Didn't really give a shit. In actuality, he was really kind of racist. He was doing it because he wanted to be seen in the same light as Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He wanted to be the 1960s version of the New Deal. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but prior to this event happening, both the Kennedys did not like Johnson. And I think the enmity between Johnson and RFK was greater than the enmity, but it was still great. And what they were trying to do was get him out, because Kennedy was kind of forced to take him as the VP. And there were a couple of editions of some magazines that came out. Let me see if I can find this. Let's see if I can do this. I hope you don't mind this, because I am going to get into some of the deep astrology on this. Okay, so I want you to take a look at this. So this is Billy Saul Estes, and this comes out on May 25th, 1962. Well, that's an interesting day. And if you look at it, let's blow it up here. The Billy Saul, so he is a crony of Lyndon Johnson. And this story is happening because the Kennedys are leaking this. There's another one that will come out just after the assassination, which will also have Billy Saul Estes on the cover. And as a result of that, Johnson knew they were coming after him. So it was in his best interest. See, all these interests are colliding. You have Johnson's interest because he doesn't want to be taken out. You have the mob's interest because Bobby is still yipping at their heels. You have Israel's interest because they're not into him. They don't want them to get any kind of advanced power or whatever. And there's clearly a beef with David Ben-Gurion and JFK. And then you have these other things that JFK is percolating on and thinking, okay, well, if we do this, we can flip this script. So this is all really important to understand the chart and what's going on here. So what's going on up at the top? Well, we have the sun in Scorpio at 29 degrees. You know, this is the Reaper, like right here. And what's interesting about the sun is look at this. Look at this. It is almost completely singleton. There's a quintile between the moon and the sun. And the quintile is what, 72 degrees. The biquintile is 144. So in a personal chart, quintiles and biquintiles seem to have a, it's like they're like shrines, only they tend to be deeper, and they're kind of, it depends on the source. Sometimes quintiles and biquintiles will have this kind of religious connotation associated with, like it's a gift from God. Like I think it's all a gift from God, but specifically the quintile, the biquintile, and they act as almost like magical powers or magical lines of the chart. So if you look at your chart and you have the Q or the BQ, you should check it out. So there's only a Q between the sun and the moon. It's that 72-degree angle. That's how you get the biquintile. Other than that, there is nothing going on with the sun. So I think this is interesting in light of the fact that they never, theoretically, found out who really killed JFK. And I know there's a camp out there. It's like, nah, he didn't really die. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He's dead. They harvested the Lelouch, whatever, right? He's gone. But this 29-degree sun is a mystery. It's really a mystery. Now, what's really interesting, I'm going to throw another chart. I am not going to go linear. Okay, I'm not going to go linear, but I'm going to just jump in. I'm going to throw up another chart here because I think based on what we're talking about and that 29-degree sun, that's part of the JFK chart. I want you to check this out. Now, this is RFKII's chart, and it's got a C rating. It's not the best, it's not the worst. Look at where his Mercury is. His Mercury is at 29 degrees in Capricorn. Okay. Where's Pluto going? It's retrograding to 29 degrees. 29 degrees. Where was the sun in that chart? 29 degrees. Okay? So, if you have 29, what do you get? 2 plus 9 is 11. You have 29, you have 11. So you have 22, the number 22, which is the master number. And when does he die? He dies on 11/22. And 22 is 2 11s. Anyway, there's a lot of number stuff here. So there's something about this chart, and let me zoom in. This chart and this Pluto retrograde. It's not at 27. It's not at 24, right? It stops at 29. And that's his Mercury right there, 29 degrees. So there's something interesting about this, right? There's something interesting about the timing of it all. Now, you guys know what that 29-degree Capricorn is. You know what it is in the Sabian symbols. In case you don't, we're going to bring it right back up here for you. So it's 29 leaning into 30. Let's just see where's this chart. Let's see. 29, 21, leading into 30. Capricorn 30, a secret meeting of men responsible for executive decisions in world affairs, the power to assume responsibility for crucial choices, arrived after mature decisions with those who share this power. Remember, this was the degree of Mars on the night of the election in 2016. Mars is a 29 Capricorn. I remember like looking at this, watching the election, and then like all of a sudden around 2:30 in the morning, Trump is named president. Whoa. Somebody made the call on this. Somebody made the call. And the rumor is that they wanted to rig it, but Trump was too far ahead. They couldn't do it. Like they had a light rig capacity, and there were just too many votes. This is what I've heard. They sure as hell made sure 4 years later that wasn't going to happen. So there's something about this degree which is really important, right? It shows up on that night during the election. And it shows up again coming back. Like it's coming back to that 29/30 degree with the Sabian symbol. And that degree is leaning into like RFK Jr. has his Mercury at like 29, 21. 9 degrees later, it's at 23, or it's at 29, 30, right? So the way the Sabian symbols work is that you usually read them in 3. The one before, the one after, and the one that we're looking at. There's kind of a cyclical triad between them. So what does this all mean? Well, something significant that's related to that night where the sun was at 29 degrees Scorpio in a complete like sextile, tight sextile with Mercury at 29 degrees and Pluto retrograding back. There is something about what's going on with RFK and Trump in time that is really important, right? Even with Capricorn rules time. We just determined that Saturn sitting on the ascendant of that event sets the clock. It sets the clock for what comes next. RFK he's got a tricky chart. He's got a very tricky chart. He has a chart that's very compromisable. And I think he knows that because he's experienced it. He's got all these squares with Neptune, Mercury, the Sun, and Venus, and squaring Chiron. And, we've talked about Neptune squares considerably on this program for years. And he's got a boatload of them. Right. So he would be the first to tell you that the way that he's lived his life is compromisable. Now, I've been hard on the guy at times, I have to say. But I'm actually pulling for the dude because I think he did something considerable on Friday. And I was talking about it over on Twitter X. And it's like, this is the hero's journey. Like you kind of have to do this. This being, hey, look, I'm going to suspend my campaign in these states, and I'm going to work with President Trump. And he did that against his background, his enculturation, his family, his current wife, and maybe even Nicole Shanahan, because he wasn't demanding that Trump apologize for Project Warp Speed. And he made the decision. To me, that's mythical, right? That's the stuff that most people don't ever see. And we've become so jaded in this world. It's a fucking act. It's all a fucking act, man. It's all fucking scripted. Can't you tell? Can't you tell? You're an NPC. You don't know what the hell is going on. You fool. You're falling for it. Have we become that cynical and jaded? Seriously, have we become that cynical and jaded that all of a sudden this is all just another byproduct of the script? Who's getting on my nerves? David fucking Icke. David fucking Icke is getting on my nerves. Oh, it's all a script. It's all a play. It's all, David, why don't you shut the fuck up? And why don't you start talking about your country, who's been overrun, unfortunately, by people that you can't even talk about. David Icke can't even talk about it. He can't even talk about it. But from his control center in the Isle of Wight, he can talk shit about America all day. And thanks, David. There are people behind the people, behind the people, behind the people. And there are archons, and they're pulling the strings, and they're pulling the strings, and string pulling. And it's like, okay, I get it. I get it. Yes, most of us have been black-pilled to some degree or another. And if you're black-pilled, there's two options for being black-pilled. One is total liberation and freedom. Like, you are totally liberated and free from every connection in this realm. Every connection. And it's not just Trump or, Kennedy or whomever. Right? You're black-pilled from other people. You're black-pilled from society or whatever passes for society. Right? You're black-pilled. You're done. And then maybe you could hook up with some other black-pilled people and reject things outright and not participate. You know what? I support that. If that's what you choose to do, I support it. I totally support it. This has been coming up for me lately. And Derek Rose, whom I think is quite earnest. And, he's on this whole, Trump bullshit. And look, don't get me started about Trump. I've been one of his most vociferous critics. And it's like, okay, Derek, we get it. What are you going to do? What are you going to do about it? Like, if you feel that strongly about it, just get out. Just get out. Just go start like an off the grid world somewhere with some people that you know and unplug. Like, just unplug if that's really how you feel. Because at a certain point, it becomes incredibly disempowering to, shout at the world and say, this is a lie, and this is bullshit, and this is fake, and this is a script, and none of it has any meaning. Then, what are your options? Your options are you start a world unto your own, or you drive your car in the garage and you hook up the hose and you turn it on and you close the door and roll down the windows. Those are your options. Because you're not going to be able to black pill 7 million people in the course of 55 days or 60 days or whatever it is. Like, it's not going to happen. And if we're going to have a black pill moment, it will be as a result of the collapse of things. And it'll happen anyway. And then you'll be proved wrong, right. You'll be proved correct in that moment. But when I listen to Kennedy, and I'm sure some of you share this this feeling or position that I have. I listened to the guy and he sounded fucking sincere. Like, why would he lie about that? Why would he lie about cleaning up the food system and the drugs and making America healthy? Why would he lie about that? He's staring down his legacy. And he was very, very Capricornian about the whole thing. He's staring down his legacy, and he basically said, look, if Harris gets elected, she'd probably be in there for 8 years, and I'll be too old to run 8 years from now. He said that. And he said, this is my last best chance to make an effect on something, right? And the effect on something, of course, is the things that he cares about. The guy is thinking about his legacy. Does he want his legacy to be, somebody who's, consistently whored around, had problems with drugs? I don't think he wants it to be his legacy. And so what he's had to do with his life is he's had to deal with all these Neptune squares and figure out how to build them up. They become like calluses. And he's already had Pluto go over his sun. And I think that when you look at that, that's when he decided that he wanted to run for president. He got involved, he got engaged. And his sun is conjunct the Pluto of the United States. Think about that for a second. So the US Pluto is right there on RFKII sun. Now, I ask you, doesn't that feel a little faded in some ways? Like this guy is connected by degree and through family affiliation. Also, if you look at his chart, he is born on a lunar eclipse. Look at that, right? That's eclipse territory right there, boys and girls. Who else is born on the lunar eclipse? Oh, yeah, the other guy, Donald Trump. So you have these two guys who've joined forces who are both born on lunar eclipses. Like, how fucking weird is that? Pretty strange, right? Pretty strange. Now, the moon would be eclipsed, obviously, when it would get to like 27. But trust me, this is close enough. This is eclipse territory. He is in the eclipse zone. And he's got this Uranus conjunction with his moon. He's unusual. Like his emotional content is unusual. His relation with women is unusual. I mean, I'm sure we could say more about this. It's certainly to some degree compromisable, but it's more compromisable with the South Node. Anyway, they're both born in lunar eclipses. So we've got Pluto retrograding right there and hitting his Mercury, and that's where it'll stop. To me, this is fascinating. This is activating. It's activating something in his chart. And I don't know ultimately where this is going. I'll tell you what I would be careful of is I would be careful if I were him. I'd be very careful about being assassinated, both him and Trump, because that Pluto is real, right? And so I always thought it was really funny that, like, okay, if Mars is in the 12th house, it's Mars in the 12th house of hidden enemies. But if Mars is in the 7th house, it's open enemies. I'm like, well, wouldn't it be the 6th house? I mean, it's kind of up for debate, right? Like, I'm kind of okay with both, especially if Mars is closer to the cusp of the 7th house. But this is tricky, right? This is a tricky Pluto retrograde, and it sits right on his Mercury. And then, of course, the inconjunct with Pluto. That is, I think, the big. It's more the sun. What do we got? 29, 21, 24, 25. So 3, that'd be 27, 25. So yeah, right. Let me see. Where's that Pluto? And let me go across to the sun. And what do we have here? Where's Venus? Pluto. Venus. Yep. Yeah, it's part of the inconjunct. So by degree, it's in there. I'd be careful. I'd be careful. Supposedly Saturn is emerging, or it's retrograding, but will emerge into his night. Remember, this is a C chart. So it's not an A, it's not a D or an X. It's, I think, an average chart. And I think kind of representative. I might make him a bit more of a Cancer rising. Although I did see pictures of him with long hair when he was younger. So I think this is important. All right. Now, one of the things that I talked about with this Pluto in Aquarius moment that we've been in, and we'll be in again, is the term strange bedfellows was a term I started to use right around when Pluto and Aquarius started to hit. And it was about making alliances with people that you would not normally make alliances with. This is in the wheelhouse of what I was talking about. Trump and RFKII are strange bedfellows. They come from very different worlds. They come from very different worldviews in terms of economics and quite possibly government. But here they are, right? They've decided that they're going to join forces here in what I think is a significant moment. And again, for me, the test is really about the astrology, right? I mean, look, he's having his Jupiter return. He's got Jupiter in Gemini, 17 retrograde, right? And he made the announcement on his Jupiter freaking return. What is Trump? He's a Gemini. Okay, is this all just fucking theater? Or can we talk about this astrologically and make some sense of this? I think we can. You know, what's going on over here, right? Trump's got a bunch of planets in Cancer, which we're going to look at in a minute. So I think that his speech, his declaration, and his like, for this to happen and for all these people to be in on it, Cheryl, all of his relatives, his family, Mia Farrow, all these people who are bad mouthing him, but particularly the ones that are the closest to him, who are bad mouthing him, they'd have to be in on it. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this, and I want you guys to bad mouth me, so I look like I'm really doing this. Go ahead and lay it on. Cheryl, to her credit, hasn't said anything, at least not that I know. So I don't think it's bullshit. I don't think it's fake, right? Did they plot and conspire maybe to fuck with the Democrats? Maybe. I would not have a problem with that. But I think this is important. Why? Because he is part of the Kennedy timeline. And I've been talking about this for a long time, right? When you look at the sign of Gemini, it plays a really important role in everything that I'm talking about. First of all, JFK was a Gemini. He's a Gemini. Where is he assassinated? He's assassinated in Dallas. And when you look at Dallas, Dallas has the two L's right in the middle of the word Dallas, right? And those two L's will ultimately correspond with 9/11. So that's important to understand. So you have JFK, he's a Gemini. He's killed on 11/22, right? And again, you have the 11. You have the 11 inside of Dallas, the word Dallas. And then 11 times 2 is 22. Very important. Who is theoretically the CIA bureau chief in Dallas? It's George H.W. Bush. And what sign is he? He's a Gemini. Okay, so now we've got Gemini George, Gemini John. We have the city of Dallas. with the two L's, just like the Twin Towers, just like the sign of Gemini, sitting right in between the D and the A and the A and the S. All right. Very important. What happens? 2 Kennedys are killed. Brothers. Again, Gemini. Bobby Kennedy is killed on 6/6/1968. Guess what? It's a Gemini day. And then when you add up 68, you get 24, and it's a 6. 666. So Gemini comes up again in the death of the brothers being represented by the sign of Gemini. It's very, very important. There's a lot of other things, like I did a big deep dive on this, and it gets into MK Ultra and the Beatles and album releases of the Beatles that coincide with these Kennedy events. It's very interesting. I'm leaving those out for now. All right, and I've talked about this before, right? So you have George Bush, who is theoretically involved, right? You have a guy who kills the guy who supposedly killed Kennedy, and that guy's name is Jack Ruby, but he's also known as Jacob Rubenstein, so he has 2 names and has a Gemini portrayal, who's also a mobster, by the way. And he has ties to both the Italian mob and the Jewish mob. Now we move forward. Let's move forward. We're going to move that. So we're going along this timeline, and eventually Nixon becomes president, tries to sort of reestablish something, and then he gets taken out. And that's another part of this story too, is Nixon. It's the resurrection of Nixon as part of the story. But that's a side angle. So now we get to a really important time. And that time is 9/11. And 9/11, 2001, right? We have the big event in New York City, the Twin Towers. And who is president during that time? It's George W. Bush, who is the son of George H.W. Bush. So they're not really brothers, but they're brother in name. They share the same name. There's a twinning effect with Gemini. Okay? Now, the Twin Towers were purchased by Larry Silverstein. Larry Silverstein is a Gemini. What happens with Larry Silverstein and his brother-in-law? They are in a bidding war for the entire World Trade Complex Center. And by the way, Larry Silverstein's brother-in-law fucking hates Larry Silverstein. He hates him. They used to do business. They're not doing business anymore. They had their own company. They split off. They get into this bidding war. His brother-in-law all of a sudden drops out. A few weeks later, he dies of a heart attack. So again, you have the Gemini thing, right? Brother-in-law in that sort of Gemini kind of vortex. Who's the mayor of New York City at the time? Rudy Giuliani, who is a Gemini. And who's there while all this is going on? It is Donald Trump, who is a Gemini. So this whole thing is connected to the sign of Gemini. And what do we have with Gemini? Will we have one path or the other path? We have one line or the other line. Now, there could be a myriad of these lines, but we're just talking about this one. We're talking about the Kennedy timeline, right? And this man, RFK Jr., has just come through his Jupiter return. And it's retrograde, right? Which is all about going back to something. And that's why I think this is significant. That's why I think the merging of Trump and RFK is significant. Again, whatever you think of the assassination attempt in Butler, whether it was real, whether it was game, whatever you think. Again, what happens? He's the guy that theoretically lives. JFK didn't live. RFK didn't live. It's dubious if Reagan lived. I have some thoughts about whether or not that's actually Reagan, but that's a different show. But let's just say, for the sake of the show, he lives. Okay. Ford's assassination attempts were weak ass. And he just sort of stumbles through them. But there's something about that moment, right? That moment is like the moment where Kennedy does not get shot, or Kennedy gets out, he gets out of the line of fire, right? There's something about that moment with Trump that shifts everything. It shifts everything. And it feels like there's this thing going on with time and historic events and people, and then all of a sudden, you know, the left comes through and Biden is shuffled out, right? There's like this sacrifice, you know, the sacrifice of Biden, the corpse of Biden sort of passes through, and then it's Harris. And now, okay, we're going to take possession of this new time. That's exactly what was going on. We're going to take possession of this new time, and we're going to pump Kamala Harris up with laughing gas. But they weren't prepared for this, right? They weren't prepared for this moment. Now, there's a lot of ground that can be covered between now and November, when we have this theoretical election. A lot of ground. There's a lot of things. We see what's going on in Ireland right now. It's terrible. It's fucked. It's happening in Germany. It's happening in England. Europe is under attack. Okay, so there's a lot that can happen between now and November. But something very important happened on Friday. Extremely important. And it's right there. It's right there. It was his Jupiter return that comes in. Okay, so let's take a look at Trump and RFK's charts. Got that. That's Trump. Why do I have all these fucking charts of RFK2? All right, here we go. So this is the synastry between these two charts. All right. Trump's on the inside. RFK's on the outside. First of all, there's Jupiter right there, conjunct Trump's Uranus, conjunct his sun. Trump's sun is at what, 22 Gemini. Let's zoom in on this. Okay, so 22 Gemini, and RFK's Jupiter's at 17 Gemini. That's a conjunction. Trump's true node is at 20 Gemini, and his Uranus is at 17. So RFK2's Jupiter and Trump's Uranus are conjunct. I think that's really interesting. I think that's kind of genius in some ways, right? Like, there are people, you're in chat, there's a lot of you in chat who know a thing or two about astrology. When you see Jupiter on top of Uranus here, something interesting is cooking. Am I right? I think something interesting is cooking. You can see there's Trump's eclipse sun, a moon rather, and then here's RFK's nearly eclipsed moon, so they both share that. Now, here's what I find fascinating, and it's not the totality of Trump's chart, right? The totality of Trump's chart is, for the most part, going to be here and then over here. So over here, we have Mercury moon, that's conjunct. The South Node conjunction with Saturn and Venus, that is really interesting. Very, very interesting. Like, there's something very kismetic about this. Like, something very past life. There's something, and again, if we're playing in this realm, the South Node represents the past. So it could represent the past, say 1963 past, or it could represent a much deeper past. But it's right there. Venus, Saturn, South Node conjunction. Like, been here, done it before. So what I find fascinating is the opposition, right? So RFK's planets are down here on this side of the chart. Trump's mostly inner planets, Mercury, Saturn, Venus. Over here, where do they resolve it? The midpoint. The midpoint's going to be Libra. And what is Libra all about? Balance and cooperation. And yes, there's squares here. Yes, I can see that. But that's where they would wind up balancing the oppositional energies. Now, his Pluto, RFK's Pluto, is conjunct Trump's sun. And what's interesting is that he also has Juno here. And Juno is conjuncting his Mars as well. So this is something new. Look at that, it got bigger. This is something new. And there are a lot of people who are, we don't really have a viable third party. We need a third party system. What do you think just happened? These guys just created a third party overnight. A third party overnight. This is what they've done. And these are not Trump. These are not like Reagan Democrats. They're not Reagan Democrats. They're not Bush. This is like the Trump version of the Republican Party. I'm sorry, Republicans. These are not Reagan Republicans. These are not Bush Republicans. The Trump version of the Republican Party is different. They're different. Now, they may be deplorables in your mind or somebody's mind, but they're just different, right? Trump, I don't know how he did it, kind of a silver spoon, real estate brat from New York, became the symbol for the everyman. Kind of mind-blowing when you really think about it. Kennedy, part of this East Coast bloodline, political establishment, cursed, doomed family, also winds up becoming a face for the everyman. Like, it's populist. And when he said that he wanted to clean up the food and the water for the children, sorry, I believe the guy. I don't think he's bullshitting. I think he realizes that his time is limited. Let's make an alliance. Let's make a deal. And again, what I find important and interesting about this is this whole idea of the timeline, right? Our world got snatched from us on 11/22/63. And even if you're not living in the United States, you're part of the world. And it got snatched from us. And what happened? Well, we had the CIA, and we have these intelligence agencies and the deep state and the dark government who gets infiltrated by these foreign actors who have been running the country with the exception of maybe Nixon for a brief period of time. And they didn't like it because he wasn't including them on their plans. So they needed to get him out. And I would say even Reagan's kind of a part of that plan, by the way. So this is what I think is really important, is the realignment of this timeline. And remember, 9/11 is very important because of the bifurcation. It's almost like we're getting ready to slip out of it. We're getting ready to slip. Donald Trump was going to run for president in 2000. I think he kind of like toyed around with it. And then he didn't do it. He should have, by the way. But he didn't do it. And then as we're kind of heading, I think, maybe drifting back towards that timeline, that it needed to reassert itself. And 9/11 is that magical act, which is, it's a dark magical act. It's, okay, this is the reality now. And we're going to shock and awe you just like we fucking shock and awe you on 11/22/1963. Same effect. Same effect. So here we go, right? This is it. This is kind of go time. RFK has that Mars in Scorpio. I can see why the ladies like RFK. He's got that Mars in Scorpio. Okay, let's do this. Let me throw another chart up here. Okay, let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. We'll just keep that for now. So, okay. I got all these RFK fucking 2 charts up here. Why? Yeah, JFK's death. There's another chart here that I have. Okay, let me get this. I'm gonna have to go back into Astro. Let me get this other chart. So I think it's okay. Let's do this. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at the midpoint composite chart between Trump and RFK2. Here we go. So this is the midpoint composite chart. And this is when you combine the chart of 2 people and you find the midpoint between everything, including the ascendant. And this chart is really interesting. First of all, we have Leo rising and we have Pluto conjunct Jupiter in the 1st house. That's pretty heroic energy. That's heroic, and they're almost exact. There's 10 minutes difference between the 2. Jupiter's retrograde, and of course, Leo rising. The sun is at 10 Aries. Right? So there's the sun, composite sun, 10 Aries, conjunct the true node in Aries, conjunct Mercury. So as one unit, this is where they're, I think it's interesting because the 9th house is foreign. Now, I know they don't want to start any wars. I get that. Like, you know, RFK said, we're going to end the neocon wars, which I thought was fucking great. Trump is, I know Trump doesn't like war. I get that. And I also know that he's on the string with Israel. And I think the Israel thing is going to be an interesting thing for them to tackle. Now, I was listening to Jimmy Dore yesterday, and Jimmy brought up, I thought, I'll use the word interesting and fair point. Trump is a deal maker. He's a deal maker. And he made a deal. He made some deals when he was president. One of the deals he made was with North Korea. And again, you can say, oh, well, you know, there's more, you know, more theater. But, you know, North Korea hasn't jacked around much anymore. Right? Like Trump actually went there and met with the guy and sent Dennis Rodman over. And, you know, now that is a diplomacy team, tag team. All they needed was yay. Yay, Rodman and Trump. There you go. But it feels to me like even though there is a fair amount of 3rd house energy, which is closer to home, this combination is 9th house, which I tend to think is also visionary. Like I think the 9th house is being visionary. Like you have to have, like it's right at the top of the chart. Like you're shooting up there. You have to have a big idea or big goal. with the ninth house. And there's not a lot of equivocating here with these planets. This is some get it done energy. Now down here in the third house, we have all the way on the other side. There's that full moon, right? Because they're both born on these full/eclipse moons. It's going to show up in the midpoint composite. It's going to be at that midpoint between Sagittarius and Cancer. So here we go. It's in Libra. There's that moon, right? And it's on the other side, conjunct Mars. There's the south node. And it feels like, again, if we're looking at this idea that the south node is the past, conjunct Mars, it's unfinished business around justice and equality and all the things that go along with it, right? Like it's mopping up Mars. Did I freeze? Somebody just buzzed me. Oh no, it was the Atlanta Braves. You see that? Right? This is action, and it's unfinished action. I like all these planets in Libra. It's all about fairness. And on the other side, you got action. You have fairness and action. Right here. There it is. Now I get the ring. All right, bear with me. I'm going to be right back. I'll be right back. Okay, we're back, I think. Let me go back to my, right here. There we go. Okay. Fairness, action. Fairness, action. And not only just fairness, but I would say fearless fairness. And then squaring Uranus. This means this T square is going to ruffle feathers. Saturn, second house, Virgo, Juno. Again, the inception of something new, but perhaps not new. Right? There's something also old here with Juno. This chart is kind of single focused. Right? This is the realm of ideas. And it tends to be local, and this is the realm of action up here. And this is, I would say, this is the big idea. This is the big idea, and this is a bunch of small ideas, but they all add up to the big idea. There's something fearless about this. This is an interesting chart. This is just the two of them, right, together, midpoint composite. And I think we're in a new zone right now. It's really interesting watching this in this new zone. First of all, let me just lay down a bit of a disclaimer. I have been incredibly critical of Donald Trump, as much as anybody with Operation Warp Speed. I'm in the Nicole Shanahan camp. I think it would be important for him to apologize, or at least say, hey, look, you know, if I had to do all over again, I would have done it much differently. And mea culpa and come clean, right? It's hard for him to do that because there's not a lot from his presidency that he could look at and say, I did this, right? I'm proud of this. Yeah, he did some stuff with the border and numbers were down. Yeah, he did some stuff with the economy and it was better. But his grand accomplishment in his mind is Operation Warp Speed. And it's angered a lot of people. that not only has he taken credit for it, but over and over and over and over again. Would it be helpful if he could? Yeah, I think so. I was very critical of him. I was really critical of him during the summer of Floyd. America's burning, and what the fuck is going on here? Nothing. Nothing. Maybe a few federal buildings were protected, but it was like we were left to hang out to dry on the summer, and that's on his watch. I've been critical about that. I've been critical of his relationship with Israel. I've been critical of JFK's summation that the Palestinians live pampered lives. I don't vibe with that. Right? I can honestly say I don't vibe with it. Like I'm not into it, and I've been consistent in this area, and it will still be consistent. And I've come to this conclusion that our world is fucking imperfect, really imperfect. And that sometimes when you look at what's in front of you and on the table, like I would love a world where we had all kinds of crazy free energy and people didn't have to deal with poverty, right? And if we were going to eat meat, we had conscious relationship with all that. I mean, I'd love that kind of world. I'd love that kind of, and the environment was clean, and and then the people of the world knew how to get along with one another. I don't care if it's a Christian God or it's a supreme intelligence that's connected to all of us, and we're all aware that we're connected to it, and so we don't fuck each other over, because if we fuck each other over, we fuck it over. Like, I would love that. That would be my perfect world. It's not here. It's not here, right? So this is what we have on the table now. It's what's on the table. And I'm not going to sit here and stomp my heels and snort and, have black smoke from the black pill that I just snorted, because this doesn't line up with my vision of the world. And that all these people are ultimately corrupt and we can't trust any of them. It doesn't interest me. And it's not going to get me anywhere. And you could ask yourself if it's going to get you anywhere. And you don't have to vote. You don't have to be involved. You could take the Derek Rose route. You can say, I'm tapping out. I'm out of here. That's a valid option. It's a valid option. And at that point, do you have to say on social media and yell at everybody because they're fucking stupid and you're falling for it again? Maybe you just move on down the road and take all that energy, right, and just move it in a different direction. Say goodbye to the world. Who knows? Maybe I'll be in a position like that one day. I'm not right now. This is what's on the table. And what's the alternative? Well, the alternative is the Whore of Babylon. I'm sorry, that's the alternative. You've seen it. You saw the show. You said, well, of course, they're going to make it look like that because they want you to go over here and vote this way. Because if you go this way, you're going to fall right into their trap. Just, it's like sometimes we overthink things. Kamala Harris is not Prince. Okay? She's not Prince. Sorry. Do you want that? Do you want that as part of your life? I don't. I don't want it. Not at all. This is what we got. This is it. And it may not be perfect. But there's something about the joining of the forces of Trump and Kennedy that, again, reasserts this idea of the timeline or the period that got snatched from us in 1963. And is it going to be Camelot all over again? Probably not. Probably hard as fucking hell if these guys somehow get elected. Like, it's only just beginning. But I'll take my chance with the flawed real estate developer from New York who's kind of crazy, right, and chaotic, and the wayward son of an East Coast political establishment family who's known more for, getting fucked up and fucking women than, carrying on the family name in a, respectable manner. Like, this is who we got. These are the two guys. And they're perfectly imperfect. And they could let us down at any time, right? Because the world is imperfect. And at the same time, this is it. Right? This is the stand. This is what it's coming down to. Because if you look around the world, you pay attention to Ireland, you pay attention to England, and you pay attention to Germany, they are letting the dogs loose. Now, of the two potential candidates, which one do you think has a better opportunity or will more readily release the dogs? Iance, Harris, and Walz. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. The one thing about Trump that I talked about the other day is the fact that he's old. He's old. I saw him on that Theo Vaughn interview. He was old. And Donald Trump is not going to live forever. In fact, I'd be very surprised if he was elected and finishes out his term. I'd be very surprised. So you have Donald Trump thinking about his legacy. He's thinking about his legacy. And he realizes that he doesn't have a lot of time. RFK is thinking about his life. These are guys that they're looking at their watches. If we're going to fucking do something, it's either now or never. And the thing that they want to do may not be the same. But it may be the same enough in order for us to buy ourselves some more time. We have to buy some time in this country. Because if Harris and Biden do their thing, and I'm sorry, Harris and Walz do their thing, Kamala's just going to be a stenographer. Executive order, executive order, executive order, executive order, executive order. And there's not a lot we're going to be able to do about it. And maybe that will precipitate a civil war. Lord knows we have enough revolutionary energy with Pluto and Aquarius and Neptune coming into Aries, right? Neptune and Aries, 0 degrees, basically the day the Civil War started. Once Fort Sumter surrendered, Neptune was at 0 Aries. Pluto and Aquarius, Revolutionary War energy. Those two energies are happening. They're part of our current time, right? They're part of our current time in this part of the timeline. What do we got here? We got Sun square Uranus, Moon, Mars square. This is unusual, right? It's kind of like this is a revolutionary, rebellious union. Not a lot of Earth here. Saturn, Juno, Vertex, that's it. So this is this is interesting. This is almost like not quite a splay chart. We'll call it a bucket. We'll go bucket. We'll go Uranus to Chiron, bucket. This is the focal point of the bucket. And that's strap it on. Let's go. That's what that is. I really like the part of fortune over here at 22. There's that number again, 22. 22 Aquarius in the 7th house. That's partnership. We talked about the vertex, right? The vertex is down here. 5 Capricorn. That's like building something. It's building. This is it's in the first decan of Capricorn, so it has a lot to do with something that has long-term ramifications. This is where the transits are right now. There's that kind of nodal return, right, where the true node at 7-7. Look at that. Look at that. You can't map that out any closer than that, right? This is their midpoint composite chart, which has the true node at 725 Aries, 724, and here it's at 7-7. It says 725. Look at that. The nodes are bang on. This is where it's headed, right? This is the direction. And obviously, south node, the past again, where they're coming from. It's fascinating. Really, really, really fascinating. I really like this Venus-Uranus trine too. It's, again, it's interesting. It's like, here we go. This is something new, right? This is a new affiliation. I mean, when have we seen this before? I have never seen this before. Never seen it. It's so fascinating to watch people and their reactions. There are a lot of people that are really pissed off, right? They're pissed off because they're RFK people. And they're like, fuck, he's fucking aligning with Trump, right? They're pissed. And you've got Democrats who are pissed because he's aligning with Trump. So they're pissed. Then you have the black pillars who are pissed because people are buying for it. They're going in hook, line, and sinker all over again. They're pissed, right? Because you don't fucking learn. When are you going to learn? You're all suckers, right? They're pissed. You know who's not pissed? Those people that were at the rally in Arizona. They cheered RFK II like he was fucking Audie Murphy and he just come home from World War II. They're not pissed. They're not pissed at all. Okay, well, let's do a little roll call here. All right, so now, and let's just say for the sake of argument that Trump honors his agreement, which in the past we've known that's a little slippery with the Teflon Don. Let's say he honors his agreement. So he's got RFK II on his side. He's hired Tulsi Gabbard to help him with the quote-unquote debates. Tulsi was a Democrat. So now he's got Tulsi Gabbard on his side. Oh, this is interesting. Now we have this infusion of some of these working class, kind of Kennedy-esque Democratic ideals. They're coming into the Trump world. There's this infusion of new life that's coming in. Incredibly fascinating. Like just watching this happen in real time. Mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. And what happens next? That's the big question. What happens next? Well, the so-called left, which is really sort of the neocon Republican right now, the so-called left is going to have to counter this in some ways. I don't know what they're going to do to counter this, but something I think significant is going to have to occur. Keep your eyes on Pennsylvania and or is it Massachusetts? Massachusetts with the mosquito stuff, right? This encephalitis. I watched a fucking helicopter dump mosquitoes out of it. Like, who thought that was a good idea? Really? Who thought that was a good idea? Fucking ridiculous. So the so-called left is going to have to do something that is going to make this event seem minor. and I don't know what that is. They just shot their wad at that silly ass convention of theirs, and I don't think did themselves any favor. The only favors they did were amongst themselves, and we know they're all circle jerking. Literally, they're circle jerking. Have you seen that video where they're going like this, and then they go like this, and they go like this, and they go like this? And it's like, we will rock you. It's looked like they're like, doing double tugs, right? I swear to God, they're doing like this. That's just weird. It's like a fucking circle jerk. Look, it's interesting. Trump has that Sun-Uranus conjunction, and you're always going to get something weird and different with this whole thing. All right, let's talk a little bit about where we are now. Let me see if I can just fire that up. Give me 1 second here. Let me go here. Let's see. There we go. Let's go here. All right, let's take a little look at now. Right now. Is everybody enjoying Virgo season? Are you paying attention to all those details? Even though I'm a Virgo, it's not my strongest asset. But I'm working on it. Okay. Let's take a look at where we are now. All right. Let me get back in here. And, screen. Here's Jolie on my screen. How'd she get there? That's interesting. All right. That's where we are now. Sun at 3 Virgo, just coming off of Regulus. By the way, that's where the sun was. On August 23rd, which was Friday, the sun was at 0 Regulus. And I've been talking about, and it was conjunct Vesta. And man, here, I'll show you. Let me just edit this really quickly. I'll show you. 23rd. Okay. So the 23rd, which is Friday, there's Regulus. It's at 0 Virgo. So the sun was 1 degree on Friday. Oh, that was earlier in the day, wasn't it? Yes, it was earlier in the day. So what was it? What about 4 p.m.? Let's see, Central Time. So look at that. Right, so it's still 112. Vesta's at 29 Leo, which is, and so if you haven't listened to my rap on Vesta, I'm sorry, not Vesta, Regulus. In 2011, Regulus went from Leo to Virgo, and it was a huge moment astrologically. Regulus, which is theoretically one of the royal stars, fixed royal stars, literally regulates the entire sky, had been in Leo for thousands of years. And in 2011, it moved into Virgo. And so that makes a very profound shift from this whole idea of being ruled by kings, emperors, lords, even to some degree, the idea of presidents, right? It's like it's moving away from this idea of royalty and this top-down leadership model to the people, because Virgo is the people, right? Virgo is the folk. These are the folk that make the kingdom work. And so when Regulus went into Virgo, it's like, okay, now it's the time for the people. It's the people's time. And it's interesting because we've seen some of them. You know, we've seen, God forbid, right? It's sort of like the dark side of it is, hey, you know, let's crank up the DEI hire machine. It's the people's time. You know, the other side of that too is, you know, it's very MAGA-like, right? Like, oh, it's about the people. You know, it's all about the people. Now, whether or not that's true or not, that's a whole other story, right? But this idea of people has become an important role once Regulus went into Virgo. And even protest movements are about people. So whether it's about Extinction Rebellion, or whether it's Antifa, or Black Lives Matter, or any of these groups, some of which are AstroTurf, some of which are joined by people who are earnest and want social change, that's all very Virgo stuff, right? It's the people. So when he did this, when RFK made that proclamation, the sun was conjunct Regulus. And Vesta was at 29 Leo, 29, 29. Look at that, 11, 11. And this chart is really interesting. Really, really interesting. You got a grand trine with Venus, Pluto, and Uranus, which we talked about before anyway, earlier in the week. So to me, this signals also the new time. Like this is like all the stuff that we've been dealing with from 2011 on has been, to be honest with you, how would I say this? It's sort of like what I would call the entitled side of Virgo. You know, it's like, oh, I get this job because I deserve this job. Or I get this role because I deserve this. Now, Virgo is not normally like that. In fact, if anything, Virgo is all about the meritocracy and working hard and showing that you have the goods in order to be, you know, elevated or promoted or hired. But coming out of Leo and coming out of this period where there's been this largesse of energy of like the haves, we'll call Leo the haves, it moves into Virgo and it's the have-nots, and now the have-nots are getting these subliminal signals that it's their time to have. Well, of course they're going to be demanding. But it's not really the best representation of this idea of Regulus in the sign of Virgo. And I've been talking about this for a while. It's kind of like, okay, well, we're trying this on, and it's not really working. It's not working because essentially what's happened is like, okay, we're going to hire a bunch of people that look a certain way and fit in a certain bucket, and this is how. And they're not saying consciously, oh, look, Venus is, you know, Regulus is in Virgo. Let's just do a bunch of DEI hires. It just evolves that way. Because when you get into something at the beginning of something, right, it's very powerful, and understanding it and trying to channel it and focus it takes time, especially when a fixed star changes signs. And they normally don't do that. We saw a fixed star in our lifetime change a freaking sign. And this is in Placidus, okay? So we're not talking sidereal, Placidus. And I could even make a case. I could make a case that this works under Placidus. Why? Go back and listen to Obama. What did Obama say when he got elected? We're going to lead from behind. That's Virgo, right? Leo's out front. Virgo's from behind. That's the sentiment. Now, did he say that again because of Regulus? Probably not. But again, when we hear these figures of speech or these proclamations, they mean something. Now, he says this after he's elected, which is around 2009. It takes about 2 years for Regulus to catch up, but it does. And that's exactly the sentiment. So when the sun on this day goes to 1, right, literally it's moving off. Think about this. It's moving off. It's moving 1 degree from 0 Regulus. 1 degree. This pronouncement by RFK on this day advances Regulus by 1 degree. And when you're talking about Regulus, that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. So to me, this is fascinating, right? Look at even on this day, Jupiter-Mars conjunction. Well, guess where Mars was on that day? Conjuncting Trump's sun. Hello, right? Like Mars that day is conjuncting Trump's sun. Jupiter's conjuncting Trump's sun. He's having his Jupiter return. It's significant, especially when we look at this whole idea of the Kennedy timeline and Gemini and the role that Gemini plays in all of this, right? What we're trying to do is we're trying to get back on that one track, that track that we were headed down before we got derailed on 11/22/1963, and through this fascinating confluence of these two men at a particular time, and one of them being very much connected to the man that died on 11, the man that was disappeared, whatever you want to use, on 11/22/1963. He's a prominent figure in this story, and I believe will continue to be a prominent figure. I will say this, that both of these men need to pay close attention to their surroundings. Close attention to their surroundings. Isn't that right? Look who's here. Look who's here. Oh, yeah, the old Jedi. The old Jedi, Jasper, the Astro guy. Yeah, you're coming at the end. All right, I'm not here to tell you to vote for Trump. You vote for whoever you want. Don't vote at all. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care who you vote for or who you don't vote for. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm doing. I am showing you, however, that there is something here, and again, the alternate is not great, and it just feels like, to me, this feels like a strange act of God. And it might have been planned out. And they met each other 16 months ago and whatever months ago, like in Minneapolis, out Mar-a-Lago. But to me, this feels like the universe just throwing a massive frickin', what do they call it? Like 12-7, 12-8 curveball. Like it just goes and breaks like that. Right? Or 12-6 curveball. That's what it feels like. And the rumblings were happening a few days before. But when it happened, it rocked a lot of people. And I think it's interesting. I'm into novelty, right? Like I'm into novelty. I am not always attached to how I think the world should go. And when something is interesting and there's novelty around it, I'm into it. I'm into it. All right. Here, let me just go back here for a second. And I love that Vesta has moved on to Regulus. Vesta, the eternal flame. Interesting. Very interesting. All right, now we've got this Mars transit coming up here. It's going to go through Cancer, and then it's going to go into Leo, and it's going to retrograde back into Cancer, and we are not going to resolve this Mars until next year. So get ready for this Mars ride, especially in Cancer. I've been enjoying the shit out of Mars and Gemini. Mars and Cancer is a lot more turbulent, and a lot of people's feelings will get really churned up as Mars moves through Cancer, especially as it begins to square Chiron. So keep an eye on that. Right. So Mars moves into Cancer. Let's do a quick browse on that. Let's see. Mars moves into Cancer about 10 days from now. Let's check. Oops. Wrong year. Okay. So the 5th of September, which is what, 10 days from now, right? Yeah, 10 days from now. So the 5th of September, Mars moves into Cancer. And it continues to move forward through Leo until December 7th. And at 6 degrees, it goes retrograde in Leo. And there's a lot of retrograde planets at that time as well. So we have Mars retrograde, Jupiter retrograde. Saturn is finally moving forward. Uranus is retrograde. Just briefly, Neptune is retrograde. It goes direct on the 8th of December. And then Pluto will have gone direct by then. So Pluto, if you're keeping score at home, goes direct on October 12th, right? Pluto goes direct on October 12th at 29 Capricorn, 2939. So it stations at 2939 for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days, 8 days it stations. And then it's on 2939 for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 more. That's 17 days at 2939. Remember the degree for that sign. The Sabian symbol. In a secret meeting, a group of powerful men determine the course of the world or the fate of the world, whatever it says. It's at that degree. That degree. I would say that from October 4th, that's the beginning of the event. Interesting. So from October 4th through October 11th, some major decisions are being made by people in very high places of power, and it's during that station. It feels to me like that's also like the week of October surprise. You know, hey, it's October surprise time. That's what it feels like. Somebody's going to drop a bomb. It's going to be a big bomb. Big boom. Big boom boom. Interesting. Very interesting. That takes us right up to election night, 5th of November. Mars at 0 Leo. Wow. 0 Leo. Venus is at 0 Leo. My bad. Mars is at 2 Leo. So if that's RFK's ascendant at 3 Leo, then transiting Mars will be conjunct his ascendant during the election. It's actually pretty good for him. We're talking like RFK is the actual president. No, he's not. But this thing doesn't happen without him. Does not happen without him. You know what I think is interesting is this Nixon story. So the Nixon story is kind of it's sort of on the back burner, and it's cooking a little bit. And Tucker Carlson had, what's his name, Jeff Gray, the guy that Jeff Shepard, who's done this incredible work on Nixon and Watergate and what happened. And it all started about a year ago when I just started to get into Nixon heavily. Who is this guy? What happened? It was really kind of fucked up. What do I need to learn about it? What do I need to learn about him? And then probably about a month ago, I was on, or 3 weeks ago, I was on Quite Frankly. And Frank said, hey, what do you know? And I kind of went into it and told him what I knew about Nixon and tried to explain some of the things he did, the positive side, the negative side. And as a result of that, in September, he's going to have Roger Stone on his show. Because Stone, of course, was in with Nixon. He's got a tattoo of Nixon on his back and everything. And I'm not the biggest Roger Stone guy, but I feel like if we look at everything that happened from 1960 to 9/11/2001, like those are the missing information. What happened in the Kennedy assassination? What really happened in Watergate? Oh, what happened during 9/11? I feel like those are the things that will pop. And those are the things that potentially can write the time that we're in. Because to me, those were the three events where we were manipulated the most post-Kennedy. Oh, the death of RFK as well. Those four. RFK, I guess you could throw the assassinations in, but I'm going to go with RFK. I'm going to go with 9/11, RFK, Nixon, Watergate, 9/11. Those are the big missing chunks for this country. And for the timeline to be complete, we need to know. We need to know what happened there. We need to fill in the missing chunks of the alternate timeline. And I think it'll happen as a result of where this goes next. Anyway, I think it's interesting, and I'm interested in seeing where it's going. And I've never seen anything like it before. And you've got two guys who are sitting on their legacies, and they got something to do and something to prove. And I want to see what they do. I want to see what they do. And if they somehow get in, I want to see how they handle the heat. I want to see how they handle Israel. I want to see if Trump can live up to the things that he's promised. Right? I am open to seeing what happens. And if it doesn't happen, hey, and the whole Harris Waltz thing goes down, we got, we'll just be prepared for that, whatever that is. Or we'll be prepared for continuity of government and a suspended election. And we've got the Mike Johnson presidency. Those are all in play, by the way. They're all in play. But of the three, the Trump-Kennedy scenario is the one that I think is the most meaningful based on where we've come from and how our reality and timeline has been hijacked. And these two guys represent sort of the missing pieces of getting us back on track again. Okay. That's it. I don't think I have any more to add. Chataria, thank you. You're the best. Anybody who's new, welcome. A bunch of great people in there. Some of you are making lifelong friends out of this time we have together, virtually and non-virtually. If you want to meet some of us, come to the Hill Country on the weekend, first weekend in October. We start on Friday. And I'll have Mario from Symbolic Studies on Saturday. I'll be doing something on Saturday. We will have the Friday forecast on Friday. The audience is part of the show. As always, the weather will be great. The hotel is lovely. There's a swimming pool there, really nice size. The food is good. And I'm actually working on another piece to our weekend gathering. And I just have to like set that up and line that up. Also, DJ Pebblestone will be there. She'll be spinning. And a lot of the people from Chattaria will be there as well. So we hope to see you. The link is in the show description. If you want to go, I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun, a lot of love, and people leave feeling better, closer, more connected than when they showed up. And I think the hotel's actually lowered the rate for the rooms too. If you need to share a room, reach out to Tom. And look, this is it, man. We're coming to this phase where, you know, we're going to need each other, right? We are going to need each other, regardless of whether the Trump RFKII coalition, the synthesis, you know, new formula third party actually happens. We're still going to need each other. Like, we are aligned against forces in the world right now, which are fucking heavy. Okay. We're literally in Lord of the Rings territory. We are going up against Sauron and the fucking orcs. All right. That's what we're dealing with. That is what we are now coming into and entering the epic clash of good and evil on this realm. This is where it's headed. And you're a part of it. And you can tap out and you can say, I'm done. I don't want to be a part of this election, this bullshit thing, the two-party system. Nobody gets out of here alive. At least not like that. Right? Because it's bigger than that. It's bigger than whatever Trump is doing. It's bigger than whatever Harris is doing. Like, this thing that we're in now this is it. Right? We are at this apex, right? This inflection point where it is definitely good versus evil. And you got to pick a side. And you know what? You may pick the wrong fucking side. You may pick the wrong side. But then again, you may pick the right side. So you're going to have to pick a side. That's the way it is. Again, I guess you can tap out. But invariably, you're going to be in the mix at some point in time. That's just my instincts. All right. Thank you for being here. We'll be back on Tuesday for the Astro Weather. And in the meantime, treat each other well. God bless. And use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to discern what's possible. I almost mumbled that. Robert Phoenix signing off.